Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Mohammed Sohail Khan. In this particular session, I will be talking about Holland Vocational Preferences. This is from the chapter of Career Management in Human Resource Management. So what actually is Holland Vocational Preferences? We can call it as a theory in which Holland proposes that it, it will be easier for a person to choose a job or a career that is kind of related to his or her personality. So what are the major components of the theory? It said that people have very varying occupational preferences. So for example, all of us cannot do the same thing from same level of productivity. Again, if you do a job that you think is important, you will be more productive employee. So for example, if there's something that is according to my personality or which I feel is much more closer to my personality, there's a lot more chance that I can succeed in that career. Again, you will have more in common with people who have similar interests. So for example, once we group people or once we have a social circles, we try to have that group that have similar interest of ours. So these are the main components of Holland vocational preference. Now we'll see the model of the theory in detail. In terms of vocational themes, there are 6 major themes that Holland identified. So for example, the vocational themes are realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. An important thing that needs to be considered here is that we need to think the themes or the vocational themes in a way that uh, the people who are realistic, for example, who can be a realistic, we call it as a doers, or investigative, the thinkers, artistic, kind of creators, social, kind of helpers, enterprising, more like a persuaders, and conventional, like an organizers. Now we'll see all those vocational themes in detail. So I basically divided all those themes in kind of a 3 dimensions. So for example, in terms of preferences, what each vocational theme has a preference, then what kind of associations you can associate these themes with, and then the profession that kind of profession that these vocational themes can go through or go to as well. So I'll just try to explain the realistic first. So realistic can be a builders or the doers. So for example, they prefer to work with objects. They prefer to implement their ideas. They have like more power and coordination in terms of skills and power. They have kind of a good problem solving skills. They are kind of outgoing in a sense that they work outside area. So for example, maybe they don't want to they don't like to work in labs, rather than they like to work somewhat in an open space. So what kind of associations or what kind of things that we can associate with realistic vocational themes? So something like tools or machines or the people who can work with hands. In terms of profession, I would say someone like architect or a surgeon or a construction workers as well. So if you just think in terms of profession, these professions are far apart. So for example, if you think of a surgeon or construction workers, so you feel that these people or these profession are really far apart. But we are thinking in terms of this vocational theme. So for example, the builders can like all those things. So for example, they can be a good problem solver. They want to work with the ideas. They want to work with objects and implement their ideas. Secondly, there's someone called investigative. So we are calling it the thinkers. So thinkers basically like to work with data. They like to observe. They like to think about things. They're kind of really curious and careful and independent. So if we just think about their preferences, I think so we can think of the people that can work in labs. So in terms of association, they may have like strong analytical skills. They have a preference to solve a complex problem. They are kind of really inquisitive. They are really trying to think about things. They want to observe. They have that capability of observance and thinking, and they like to definitely work with data. So what kind of professions we are talking about when we think about thinkers? Maybe someone like a software engineer or a professor or someone like a researcher who like to works with data, or who likes to think in terms of research, who want to solve the complex problem, or being analytical as well. So the third category in this is the creators, the artistic or the creators. Think about the creators, or who basically are the creators. Definitely, there can be someone who is good in drawings or painting or something, but it is not just relates to just painting or drawings. These are the people who are kind of innovative in a sense, who are inventive, who are just open-minded, who just want to work with original themes, who cannot work on repetitive tasks, who are like imaginative, who want to express themselves, and they are kind of being idealistic in their own. So in terms of association, I would say that people who just work or think outside the box. There are lots of creativity in there. Creativity has some kind of relationship with the emotion. So, for example, they are open. They are original in that sense. In terms of careers or in terms of professions, I would say someone like composers or musicians or writers or researcher as well. Someone like that are kind of have some entrepreneurial activities in them. So entrepreneurs as well. So someone that have original things in their mind. The fourth category would be what Holland call as a social, or that these are the people that we can easily identify as an helper. So who can be a helper? So helpers are the ones who try to help people, or who try to teach others. They want to work with people. So this is also an important category. They want to work with people, for people. They prefer stronger relationship or the close relationships. Things that we can associate with social would be kind of generous. They are kind of friendly in their nature. They are responsible. They are much more understanding, or they have warm attitudes towards others. Kind of careers that we can talk about, maybe the professors or the teachers or the trainers. So and so definitely social workers in that sense, who are working for people in some category. The next category is about enterprising, what we call as persuaders. So persuaders can be someone that can easily persuade someone to work on this. If we just look at this persuading skill, so these kinds of people can be a good in leadership skills. So they can have a good leadership skills in that. So the preferences will be working with the people, definitely with the people and with the data. So that data will help those kinds of people to persuade others. Again, they can convince others. They may have, or they should have, kind of good leadership qualities. Uh, Another dimension to look at those peoples is that they prefer reputation, they prefer power, they prefer money or status. So that's where the leadership qualities is also coming in terms of association. Maybe those people are much more ambitious, because it's more like a leadership quality, or they are optimistic in that way. They're confident that they can do things, or they can persuade people. In terms of careers, for example, a business person or a sales person, like that you can really see in everyday life. A person who can be a good architect, who can be good entrepreneur. So those are the careers that we are talking about if we are thinking in terms of persuaders. Definitely architect, because he or she is persuading someone that his or her model is a good one, and it will look good once we categorize this model, and once we have a good model of those things like in our reality world. Definitely a business person as well, or a salesperson somewhere. uh, and again, a different perspective from the persuaders, or definitely from the creators, is about the people who are more conventional. We are calling it as an organizer. So who are organizers? Who just work according to rules and regulations, who are much more structured. They work orderly work. They don't like unstructured or unclear situations. So the people who are much more like procedural in their sense. In terms of association, we are talking about people who works in terms of precision or in terms of efficiency. They are much more practical in that way. So the careers, we are talking about the accountants or engineers, the people or the profession that are structured in some sense. So what is all those things that we talked about? So if we just looked at that, it means that these are the vocational preferences that is based on the personality. So for example, if you are doers, or if you are thinkers, if you are creators, then you are kind of belong to the category of realistic vocational themes, or the vocational theme that has to do with something about the investigations, or something that is more about artistic in nature. So the doer should go into the vocational theme that is much more realistic in nature. Thinkers would can adopt the uh, the profession that relates to much more about the investigation of things. And definitely creators have much more preference to go towards the vocational, or the careers, the vocation or the careers that is much more artistic in nature. But what these things all about? So for example, if we just think in terms of the professions that are not connected to each other, for example, realistic and social, those two kind of themes or the vocation are kind of opposite to each other. Rather than realistic, investigative, or artistic, these are the themes that are much more reinforcing themes. So for example, if there's a profession, if the person personality is about doers or thinkers or creators, so it is better that they can go in a profession that have much more reinforcing things. So the doers won't that much like about the uh, personalities or the groups of the people that are more social. So social and doers will be much more in the profession that have opposing themes, rather than doers and thinkers and creators would be in a theme that is much more closely related to each other. So in short, Holland vocational preference is about the personality and making a personality match with the career. So it will help people in terms of understanding their personality, and then try to find a, a vocation or a career that is closer to their personality. I hope that this session helps you in terms of understanding Holland vocational preference in much easier way. Thank you very much.